Hi, I'm Mark Kermode, and welcome to a masterclass in animation from one of the greatest animators in the world. I'm going to be talking to the brilliant Bobby Podesta as a chief animator at Pixar, and he's been working on characters and stories from some of your favourite Pixar films: Toy Story 3, Cars, Inside Out, Monsters Inc., you name it. Bobby's promised to tell us some of the secrets of drawing animated films. He'll also show us how to draw your favourite Pixar characters, and he's got some advice if you want to become an animator. Plus, he'll be answering some of the questions you sent in earlier. So now, let's meet Bobby. Bobby, lovely to speak to you. Where do I find you?
You can find me in my basement office in my home in Oakland, California, which is about 5 miles or so from Pixar, from the campus.
I have to say, it looks fantastically tidy. It looks like everything's kind of really nicely organized. I'm in a broom cupboard and everything's completely shambolic. Are you a naturally tidy person?
I am, believe it or not, I think I'm a naturally tidy person. My wife thinks I'm messy. All my art friends thinks I'm extremely tidy. So it's a sliding scale. It's really just a sliding scale.
So I know a load of people watching this will be, people wanting to get into animation. How do you become an animator? How does it work?
I think the best way, if you want to be an animator, I'll say two things. One is animator is kind of a catch-all word, right?
Okay.
Where, like, what I actually do is an animator. I move characters on the screen one frame at a time. That's an animator. Yeah. But animation's got all these different jobs. There's people that design characters, and there's people that design backgrounds and do storyboards and write, and are computer scientists and all these different things. So if you want to be into the animation world, if you just love animation, there's probably a spot for you. Like, no kidding. Now, if you want to be what I do, if you want to be an animator, I think the best thing to do is to find a way to learn. And that could be school, that could be videos, things like Pixar in the Box, that can be books, lots of books to get, and just start to learn. And you got to start somewhere if you want to get anywhere, and that's just kind of how it goes.
Did you always draw? I mean, were you like a kid who had a pad with him who was always sketching?
Yeah, I always drew. I don't remember not drawing, which is not to say my drawings were good, but I always drew. And I had my mom and my grandma and my aunts, and they always said, "Oh, these are great." And I always felt that encouragement. And I always thought, like, "Oh, I can do this." And it became like part of my identity. Yeah, so I've drawn as long as I can remember.
Do you still have your drawings from when you were a kid?
My mom does. And I'm like, "You can get rid of those." And she still has a lot of them. Like, and I go and I see her and she's like, do you want any of these? I'm like, "No, I'm good. I'm good. You can get rid of those." And then I'll come back a year later and she'll say, "I have some of your drawings." I'm like, love it. But I've got boxes of my own kids' drawings, so I get it.
Okay. So how do you go from being somebody who draws and, loves it, into somebody who is professional? How do you get into the industry? How does it work?
Yeah. So for me, like I said, I loved drawing. I grew up watching a lot of cartoons on television, reading a lot of comic strips like Peanuts and Calvin and Hobbes and Garfield and For Better For Worse, those things. And for me, the thing, and you'll find this with a lot of animators and artists, there's always like that movie, that one moment when things clicked and you thought, "Wait, someone does this." And for me, that was The Little Mermaid. I saw The Little Mermaid and I thought, this is it. And I did what I thought I should do back in, 1990. And I wrote a letter on paper, simply addressed to the Walt Disney Company, not a person, just the Walt Disney Company, saying I wanted to be an animator. How do I do this? And I got a nice form letter back with like one hand typed line that said, "Here's some schools, go look into some schools." And I did that. I was laser focused, and I went to college for this. And I started making films for the first time. And that got the attention of this little upstart studio that was making computer animated films 300 miles north of Hollywood called Pixar. And I had a chance to come up here and start on A Bug's Life. That was my first film.
One thing that when you started out, obviously not everybody had, access to movie cameras. Maybe some people had a Super 8 or something. Nowadays, everyone on their phone pretty much has got, access to some kind of camera. Do you think has that made things easier, or has it just kind of raised the bar for everyone?
I think the nice thing about it, because like the first animation I ever did was on a flip book. Index cards, binder to clip, putting together, post-it notes,
Yeah.
edges of books that you're not supposed to be drawing in.
Yeah.
And my daughter, who's 15, is doing animation on an iPad. They have a chance to try things out a lot. It's a lot of iterations, and just the process of trying something and sometimes succeeding and more oftentimes, failing, which is just as important, gets them learning at a faster rate, which is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, that thing you say about failure being important. So many people in creative industries say you learn more from the things you get wrong than the things you get right. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that wholeheartedly, 100%. The best lessons I've ever learned was because of failure. The most growth I've ever had is because of failure. I am a walking failure, I feel like, most of the time. um, but it's that sense. It's not. I mean, this sounds like a platitude or something you'd see painted on a wall or something. But it's not about how you fall down. It's about how you get up, right? And so often people fall down and go, "I'm not meant to walk." Like, are you kidding? You could totally do this. Get back up. You wouldn't, if your computer crashed that you just spent a bunch of money on, you wouldn't throw it away. You'd reboot it.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do that for yourself?
I'm reminded of, that's not flying, that's falling with style, and falling with style has become, I kind of think, a mantra for an entire generation,
It
because
is our
actually
lives.
falling with style is flying. That is what it is, isn't it?
That's
Um,
it.
is it possible to kind of sum up the journey that a character would have from being something you would imagine and draw to then being the character that we see on the screen? And like the fact that in my house, I've got Woodies and Buzzes, and is that a really long journey between the first time you ever draw a character and then it's on screen and then I can actually hold it in my hands, or is it a fairly simple process?
Yeah. I mean, for what we do at Pixar in making these movies will take years to make. And they almost always come out of, the mind of our directors who have an idea for something. But then it becomes a very, very collaborative process, right? It's someone designing Woody or Buzz and lots of different iterations, and then we'll go and we'll build it out in the computer while someone's working on the story, while someone's designing the sets, while animation's getting ready to animate, and we're all
Yeah.
working towards a common goal. But it all comes back to what is the story, what is the character, what's the intent, right? We want to know what the intent is, and that's going to be our kind of our driving force, our beacon that's out there that we're all aiming for.
If you had a message for somebody who's watching this, who'd, maybe watched one of the movies that you'd worked on and had that same feeling that you had watching Little Mermaid, what would you say to them in terms of, because obviously you've been incredibly successful. The first movie you worked on was Bug's Life. I mean, wow, start high. But what message would you give to somebody watching this and thinking, I'd love to do that?
I would say this: people will get in there when you start to try to do something, anything professionally, right? Anything where you're going to apply your talent. It's easy to sometimes feel bad. I got to college and I was like, I'm the worst artist here, right? And talent is kind of a sliding scale. No one will ever be the best, and no one will ever be the worst. Period. You're going to be somewhere in the middle, and so you can't really control that. But tenacity, you can. And I will take tenacity over talent any day of the week, and that's the thing, because I've seen more people with massive amounts of talent not apply themselves and not get very far. And even more people with the talent that they've got, just wring it out and go farther than I think they or anybody else is expecting. So I will take tenacity over talent any day of the week.
When you say that nobody can ever be the worst at anything, Bobby, you haven't heard me play the French horn. I am, however, very tenacious. And
Okay.
Now, you have with you brilliantly a screen that you can show us some of the kind of creative process on. I think it's
Yeah,
important to explain at the beginning that although when we see the Pixar movies, they're a complete picture and it's amazing detail, but these things all start as essentially single line drawings, don't they?
they all do. They all do. The computer makes it look different in the end. It's a style choice, right? It's I want to paint something with watercolors. I want to draw it with a pencil, right? I could still capture the same thing, but it'll look different. It's a style choice, and that's our choice, is to tell this through computer animation. But everything has to be designed. Everything has to start with something, and almost always starts with a drawing.
Okay, so if you can share the screen for us and show us how, for example, you would start drawing perhaps a character that we know, a character that we would recognize.
Let's see. We'll make it a test, right, for you or
Okay.
for your audience.
Okay.
If I'm going to start drawing something, how long until you can figure out what I'm drawing?
Okay.
So it's like your favorite at-home game.
Okay.
So if I did,
Pictionary, yeah.
this is Pictionary. If I went,
Okay.
you could
Yeah.
do
Now,
that, and
so the brilliant thing is, and that obviously everybody watching will have had their own moment. I know exactly when it was that I knew what you were doing, and it was the half circle within the half circle. Okay, fine, I know what that is, because I see the shape of Buzz Lightyear so clearly in just those simple lines.
okay, wait here. I got one for you. All right, Mark. Okay, you ready? Start your timer.
Okay.
3,
Okay.
2, 1.
And you see again, I mean, the really strange thing about this, again, I know everybody will have their own moment, but with that, it was literally just the outline without any detail at all, just the first part of the outline coming round the front. Now, tell me this: why is it that simple line implies the whole of the rest of that drawing for me?
I mean, I think that's the thing with art, and I think with practice, right? Is um, you know we are working our entire lives as artists to figure out that if I come here and I draw something that you will recognize what that is, with hopefully not a ton of lines. There's not a ton of lines here used, but I know that this line here, as I come down the nose, I'm going to come down the nose, and I know that at the end of this nose, there's going to be some cartilage here. That cartilage is going to wrap around into a nostril here. That's going to, if I were to sit here and shade this, it's going to come up here on the bridge of the nose, and then below that it's going to come down into the top of the lip, which is going to curve down and be wrapping around the cheek and around the teeth to get something that's got a lot of information in it, right?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to do that, but my simplified version is I'm going to come down, do this, and this little wobble here, that has all that information in it. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to distill down all this information into the simplest forms. And this is what, go to museums. Like when you go to a museum and you see these master artists,
Yeah.
you look in books, you look online, what they're able to do with just a line is really fantastic. They're able to capture the essence of it, but as practice.
Okay.
So for everyone watching this, it's practice. And if you have a mirror and a piece of paper, you can practice. Just stare at yourself.
One of the most brilliant things about the Pixar films and the Pixar characters is the amount of emotional involvement, our emotional engagement with them. And I'm going to ask you something, which is, when I was looking at that drawing that you just did, there was a kind of wry, sideways expression on the face. Show me how, in the simplest possible terms, you would show me a character looking sad, or a character looking amazed, or a character looking intrigued. What would be the key things there?
Okay, so we have sad, we have amazed, we have intrigued.
Which is the most difficult, I would think. Intrigued.
Well, it's the most difficult for me to spell, so I'm going to tell you. Intrigued, is it G-U-E? T-R-I-G-U-E?
I think it's G-U-E. Yeah, that's it. U-E-D.
Oh, good gracious! This is the test. Pictionary, yes. Scrabble, no. So so I'm sitting here, and let's say we go back to Woody. Woody's
Okay.
a nice character. So we've got Woody, and I know that as I'm drawing Woody, if I'm sad, and this is also the thing that happens when you're drawing, you can see you start to kind of envelop and take on the emotions that you're in, and he might have, his brows might be up a little bit, but his eyes might be kind of maybe not, initially I was putting them down, but maybe they're not down. Maybe they're just slightly unengaged,
Okay.
as if he's not sure what's going to happen next, right? I'm trying to tell a story.
Yeah.
What is the story that he's doing there? And then, like, he doesn't even know what to say. Would his mouth just be just barely open, as he's sitting here? Maybe this is when he's going to leave or something.
Wow.
So sad, but amazed, you're opened up.
Okay.
Like amazed, like, wait a second. If I was amazed,
Okay, so wide eyes.
wide eyes, he's opened up. What is happening? What is he watching? There's a sense of engagement that's maybe he's leaning forward a little bit, like leaning in.
Okay. Yeah.
Versus intrigued, like, wait a second. Like, what's going?
This is the difficult one. I'm sorry, this is a bit of a curveball.
Like, what kind of questions are you asking me, Mark? That's what he's thinking. I don't know. Should I trust this guy's spelling of the word intrigued?
What's
mouth might be pulled back a little bit. He's got shoulders.
Okay, fine. So that's the interesting. You put the shoulders because, and whilst you were doing it, and but you did it yourself. You started to, you moved yourself in that position as well.
Yeah. Well, so that's an interesting. This is actually an acting point. And I was talking to an animator about this yesterday.
Okay.
How our bodies will often do the thing we're about to say before we say it. Our bodies will get there before we actually say it. And this is just something that happens. I'm sure if someone went back in the last couple of minutes of me talking with you, if they were to slow down, they'd probably say, oh, his hand gesture arrives before he says the word. His shoulder does this before he gets there. And we take that in and we think about it because animators, we're observers, and we want to find a way to see what we're observing, break it down into the pieces, translate it into something we know, and then be able to, in a sense, kind of regurgitate it in a new form. So when we're animating characters, we'll oftentimes even have the gestures land just before the dialogue is, because that's what we all do naturally.
What I love about those drawings is the simplicity of them, the fact that we can tell really complex things from really simple lines. What's the character that you most enjoy drawing or animating? Is there one that you particularly return to?
I return to this toy, this Woody, all the time. I love I love animating him. I love drawing him. I love the complexity of Woody as a character. You know, for animators, that we have to listen to these lines over and over and over again in our headphones. There are worse things to people to partner with than Tom Hanks doing a line of dialogue that you're gonna try to find a way to put that up, manifest that up on the screen visually. Yeah. He's pretty great. He's a great character. Plus, I mean, this is, come on, look at this. A character that's got this shape, you know, with I mean, that's a fun shape to be able to draw and to be able to play with. And this is, you know, that's a very different drawing than what I just did.
Yes.
And that's the other thing that I think is really important as people are growing up. Like when I was growing up, I thought there was one way to draw often.
Okay.
I would see someone doing something like, I have to draw like that. If I can't draw like that, I suck. I'm terrible. But there's as many ways to draw as there are, you know, colors in the world. And the important part most of the time is not that it's drawn in a specific way. Sometimes that is important, but most importantly, it's are you conveying what the intent is? Are you conveying what you're trying to get across as an artist? Here, I'm just trying to show you the shape language of Woody. You know, he's one box, two box, you know, two long legs, and then a circle with another box. That's kind of Woody's shape language. That's it.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to ask you one more drawing question. We're talking to each other through, through computer screens. So this is kind of a bit of a tough one. Can you draw a really simple version that I would recognize as me?
A really simple version that you would recognize as you.
And let me just tell you in advance that I constantly get told that I look like the grandfather out of Up.
Well, maybe.
Yeah.
This is, you're somewhere between like Up and a Muppet. Sorry about that.
Hey, I take both of those as a compliment. All
right, let's see. Coloring your mouth a little bit. And you've got a dark shirt on right now. The microphone's on the wrong side, but I drew it on the wrong side, so no one will know. We'll flip this later.
That's fantastic.
There you go.
That is brilliant. That is brilliant. Now that's doing it with a person. You drew a car before. There are all the way through all the Pixar animations. There are fishes and cars but you somehow you managed to give them human qualities. How do you make a car look like it has a face that we can understand?
This was, so I was the first animator to start on the first Cars film. I started on it right after finishing working on the first Monsters, Inc. And we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have a language of anything. And I remember when we started doing it, we said, okay, we could draw a car, and a car will look like this. Now I can, if I want to, draw, a person in here, and they're driving, and another person in here, and back seats, and lights, and going down a freeway, and it's fine. It's just a car. It's just a car. But if I say, you know what, instead of people, we're going to look out through the eyes of that. The eyes are the windshields, and I suddenly add eyes here. You start to go, okay, well, there's people there. Now the trick we had to do is we had to have one eye, which doesn't make sense, right? But we have two eyeballs. So when we were doing this, we thought, well, let's have this break, either a sloped break or a stepped break or something in the eyebrows. So the eyebrows always, and the eyelids, sorry, they always follow, they stay in between these two eyes, no matter what, looking left or right, they always stay in between. And we did that consciously so that you as an audience are going to go, oh, well, that's eyes and eyelids. No, it's not. It's a windshield with two eyes. It doesn't make any sense. But we're creating a language and we're creating these rules to make it work. And then we're gonna, we knew we're gonna put the mouth down here, and, below the headlights. And so now you can, kind of take these two things. We can take the eyes that are up here and the mouth that is down there, and how we make them move together makes it feel like one whole face. But then we've got these wheels, which I had done an early test on the first cars, where it was the first test I did, where I took an early model of the character Luigi.
Yeah.
And this probably no one knows. We didn't have a set to put the model in, but we had just moved into the Pixar building. And so we had the architectural computer model of the building. And we imported that into our animation software. So the first Cars animation test has the character Luigi in like the entrance heading to the Pixar building. That's where it was set, which is an odd bit of trivia for you. And I said, I want the character to come in and face screen right, and then have to turn screen left. And if I have him do it with like a normal turning radius of cars, he went out of sight of frame.
Yeah. So
I can't have him go outside of frame. I want a lock camera. So I said, well, what if he peels out? And I had him peel out to try to turn. That looked ridiculous. And then I was home, and this was before I had kids, and we had a dog. And I noticed that my dog could do things on its hind legs if it needed to. It could reach up and paw something or do whatever, but it was most comfortable on all fours.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what if the car is most comfortable rolling, but if it needs to, it could take a step, or it can gesture, could do whatever, with the front tires or whatnot. And then I tried that. I had Luigi come in, he sets the line, he turned, he took a couple steps, and he kept rolling, and it worked. And we start kind of building upon that language of movement. And as we do this, the Cars world is one of the most vast worlds we've ever created.
Yeah.
And we're just layering this language of how we work and movement and whatnot on top of each other, on top of each other, on top of each other, to make it a believable world. That's what we're trying to do. Not a real world, a believable world.
I absolutely did believe in it. I loved that world. I kind of wanted to spend more time in it, if anything, because even just looking at the background drawings of, of all those locations, I thought it was absolutely breathtaking. We have some questions that have been sent to us. Are you okay to answer a few questions from?
Yes. Do you still want to see the screen, or should we just do some questions?
No, let's do them together, unless you want to illustrate them with with bringing the screen back up again. Does that work for you?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right. So this is from Cass, who's 9, and Etta, who is 6. This is a great question. If you were part of the Incredibles, which superpower would you want?
Wow. That's a really good one.
Isn't it?
If I was part of the Incredibles, let's be clear here. Let's get the most bang for our buck. If we're going to go this route, Baby Jack Jack. Baby Jack Jack's got so many different powers. Like, I could choose to be really strong, or, Elastigirl, or invisible, or fast, but we don't even know how many things Baby Jack Jack can do. So I'll take Baby Jack Jack.
Okay. I remember watching Jack Jack Attacks for the first time and almost having a convulsive fit of laughter, because it was that thing about you never knew what was going to happen next.
No,
okay.
Which is pretty much how it is sometimes with babies.
So this is from Franco Affinita, who's 8 years old, loves the Pixar shorts. He wants to know if you're making any more. The Pixar shorts are, I think, a particular favorite with many people.
Yeah, we are. We've been making these really great shorts called Spark Shorts at Pixar, which are a whole bunch of different animation styles and different storytellers and different storytelling. And I believe you can see them all right now on Disney Plus. So they're really great shorts.
And what's the essence of a great short? Is it different to a feature film? Is there a kind of a key thing about a short film?
I think the key thing with short film, I mean, it's a smaller scale of storytelling,
Okay.
but it still has to resonate. You know, it still has to resonate deeply, just like our features do.
Yeah.
There's a really great short that came out a couple years ago called Bao, that Domishi did, and that's her experience and her life with her mom. And there's another one that came out a few years back called Sanjay's Super Team, which I adore, and partly because Sanjay Patel and I met at 17 at this summer arts program. So I've known him for more than half my life, and seeing his story put up on the screen just felt so amazing. Like I loved watching him, like, oh man, that's you, but told through, you know, this fantastical world.
Yeah.
But they're still these personal stories.
Okay, so here's another question. This is from Sophie Louise. How did you get into animation? You trained at college to be an animator, but do you think there are other ways into the industry?
Definitely. I think there's lots of ways into the industry. It could be college. Now, so when I went to college, most of the options were to go to a physical college. Sometimes now, as we're learning, you can learn online as well. There's a lot of online schools. There are colleges to go to. I have animators that I work with that taught themselves through videos and through books. The key is to find some instruction. It could be videos, it could be books, it could be tutorials, it could be school, whatever works for you, right? Whatever works for you that makes sense, that you can do, you can find a way to get access to. There's no one way, I will tell you that.
Okay, so the key thing is finding the learning that works for you personally, and don't feel that you have to go the same way as anybody else.
No, I will guarantee you this is life. None of us take the same route.
Okay.
We think we do. We think we're going to get on the road and it's going to be the same road someone else took. They're all going to be different.
Okay, this is from Paul Gifford. What Pixar film would you have liked to work on but didn't get the opportunity?
Easy. First Toy Story. I was still in school. I just missed it. I arrived at Pixar in '97. Toy Story came out in 1995. That film, if I could somehow just be a couple years older and go back in time, I would have loved to have had a chance to work on that, even just for a moment.
Yeah, but as I said, I remember seeing it for the first time, and I'd never seen anything like it before. I think even now it's still astonishing. Okay, now this is something you might want to call up the drawing board for. This is from Natasha Bradley. How do you make expressions so lifelike, particularly when the characters aren't people? We were kind of talking about this before with Cars. Do you use actors as models?
Do we use that? You know, when we're doing this, we will look at the voice actors who are doing the recordings. We have video recording of Tom Hanks or Owen Wilson or Holly Hunter or any of these actors as they're performing their roles. And we'll look at that for reference, and sometimes we'll draw inspiration from that. A lot of times we'll look in a mirror and we'll kind of make the expression, what am I doing? You know, and you know that alone can give you a sense of, you know, what's going on? I don't know what's happening here. When you're drawing, so even if it's a car, you know, I might be looking, and I'm using the camera of this conversation as the mirror. That's, you know, that will start to get me. He's a little heated here. Probably lost a race or something. I don't know. As you go, so you know, if you're drawing, I would suggest, you know, grabbing a mirror and looking at it, and it's amazing what you can do when you're just looking at yourself. And it could be for a character you're working on. It could be for you. If you're trying to draw yourself, it's great practice, you know. don't know what's happening here. I'm just 5
So,
o'clock shadow.
so when we're looking at your work, we can see a level of self-portraiture in it. When we're looking at those expressions, whether it's a car or whatever it is, we're seeing perhaps an expression that you pulled for yourself in the mirror.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, we're putting ourselves out there. I mean, as animators, we're the visual representation of this performance, and we are partners with the voice talent in what we're trying to craft. And we're partners with each other too, because it's just not one animator making these films. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of us, and we all have to really partner together so it doesn't feel like there's a dozen different, Buzz Lightyears up on the screen. There's only one Buzz Lightyear. That's it. That's what we want to convince you of.
Okay, here's another question. This is from Alfredo Affinita, 11, loves gaming. What software do you use to create and color the characters? Has the rendering speed evolved over time? I need to say, incidentally, I'm lost already. I'm passing this on, but not of interest to my kids' audience. So how has the rendering speed, whatever that is, changed over the years?
Luckily, I work with some very smart people who have taught me the keywords. No, you know what? The software that we're using to animate it's called proprietary software, which means it's software that we wrote ourselves. And by we, I mean a whole bunch of really, really smart folks that work at Pixar, computer scientists. And so that's what we work on, and that's what we use to render our films. And the rendering speed has gotten faster. I think I heard someone say we could probably render Toy Story in real time right now if we wanted to make it look the same.
And just to say, Bobby, just in case people like me, rendering means actually making the thing physically appear on screen. Is that correct?
Yes, it's like drawing the pixels, the thing that's actually going to take all the information that's fed into it, right? All the movement, where the character should be in space, and the color and the texture and the light and everything else like that. And it's going to draw those pixels up on the screen. And it's gotten faster over the years, but we've also wanted to push the boundaries of it, right? So we push the boundaries of what it looks like, of what we want it to look like, of the art of it. So even as it gets faster, we still kind of like test it, and we want to kind of move forward.
Okay. I'm going to ask you one last question. This is lovely. This is from Shiloh, age 6.5. I love the Toy Story films. I watch them all the time. Why do you have different characters in each Toy Story film?
Why do we have different characters? I think the wonderful thing about the Toy Story characters is it's kind of it's a whole world, right? It's a whole world of characters, and they all speak to different people, and they all speak to different experiences. There's some toys that are from our childhood, and there's some toys that are completely made up. They run into these different characters in these different parts of the world. And those characters are like us. They've got unique experiences. They've got unique points of view. And those are the stories we want to tell, right? So we want to have more characters. We want to have new characters so that you can see yourself up on that screen as one of those characters. That's important.
Bobby, I'm going to draw this to a close. It's an interesting observation that you and I are on other sides of the world. Technology is joining us. I mean, as we can see, the sun is actually going down where I am. I'm becoming quietly darker over the course of this interview. It's been a real pleasure talking to you about all this stuff. One thing I am fascinated by, technology has moved on so much. I'm an old man. In the space of my lifetime, I've gone from not having a phone in my house to everybody having a phone in their hand. Do you think that for the young generation growing up now, who maybe want to be, animators in the film industry, have all these changes made a profound difference? Or is the fundamental thing that you experienced about seeing Little Mermaid and then drawing pictures, does that still drive the industry and animation?
I would say the thing that hasn't changed is inspiration. People are going to find inspiration in a myriad of ways all over the place. So they're always going to find inspiration. What has changed is access. So when I was learning to animate, I had very few options. I had less options than there are now. Whether I could take advantage of those options or not, I was able to, but not everybody could. And now there's access. People can, learn online. They can learn from a YouTube video. They can grab an iPad. They can get a stack of index cards. There's so many more options to learn how to do this. So find your inspiration. That hasn't changed. And then there's probably a way for you to practice and do it, and I think that's the most exciting thing.
Bobby, it's been great talking to you, and thanks so much. It's a really inspiring and uplifting message to end it on. And as I've said before, thank you so much for all the hours and days and weeks, to be honest, of viewing pleasure that you've given all of us. Thanks ever so much. It's been great talking to you.
It was an absolute pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your evening as your sun goes down. It was great talking to you.
Thank you. Thanks to the brilliant Bobby Podesta, and thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.